Okay. Hi. Hi, Teresa. Thanks so
Hi,
much for
Mary.
joining me today. I appreciate it. Well, tonight we're taping nice and late after the kids are asleep. So I really appreciate you being a part of this. This is our How to Be series, and we're just taping interviews with parents and finding out how you're being. So I am really glad to, talk with you today. And I just start off all of these interviews just by asking, how are you doing? How are you?
So I'm doing okay. It's been kind of a juggle. I teach high school boys, and so last week we started teaching online. And our school has got a schedule where we have to take attendance during the class period and all of that. And I had the flu right before we went to online learning, so hadn't been to school the week that things started to get really crazy on the East Coast. I missed Wednesday and Thursday of that week. Friday was a professional development day. I didn't go in. I had the flu and a double ear infection and sick kids home. And then the kids, we found out, were coming home with packets on that Friday, and that they were going to be home for 2 weeks as well. We live in Maryland. And so it's been a little bit crazy trying to juggle teaching and figure out how to keep my students. I have freshmen, sophomores, and seniors, how to keep things going with them and keep my kids going. My husband's in the Air Force, so he was not around last week a lot. He was still going into work. This week he's been home, but he's been in teleconferences and not really available. So it's been on me to try to juggle everybody's schedule and multitask. So it's been some creative planning, but we're doing okay.
Wow.
So,
It sounds like a lot. I know. I was just watching another colleague of mine talk about the challenges that parents are going through, and she's a therapist, and just talking about how to deal with all of this without having to deal with parenting children is a lot. But then adding in the needs of three individuals who are quite young and still need a lot on top of your work and needing to be available to your students is a lot.
yeah, I mean, I'm re-prepping everything. And I feel really lucky because I've taught online before at the college level. So I know I have an edge going in. I have a degree in instructional technology as well. So I have a little bit of an edge on a lot of teachers. And I realize that. And so the transition to online hasn't been terrible for me. It's just hard to manage re-prepping. I'm super behind in grading papers that came in the week that I got sick. They took tests and some papers, and I just don't have time. I don't have free periods to do any planning or grading, so I'm trying to do that at nighttime. And then I'm just tired. It's just like it's
Yeah.
emotionally draining. And it's hard too because, in some ways, as a high school teacher teaching all boys, like they feel more comfortable sometimes telling us how they feel about all of this than they do their families. And so you're emotionally drained worrying about your students and your kids and your family. And it's a lot to take in and balance. So
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
it's been tough.
Absolutely. 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 So I just wanted to know, what is your typical day like right now?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so we are still trying to keep a really strict schedule in some ways, I guess. In some ways, we're not. When I found out the kids were coming home, I took a look at my teaching schedule and I merged the kids' schedule with that. So my kids are 8, almost 6, and 4. So they're in second grade, kindergarten, and pre-K 4. And so what I did was we all get up at 7. I still wake up and shower. And I try to look somewhat presentable. Like our school said, dress like you would on a dress down day instead of professional dress. So I still try to look somewhat professional in case I'm on Zoom with the students. And then the kids have to get up. They have to get out of their pajamas on school days. So we still call it a school day. They have till about 8 o'clock, 8:15 to eat breakfast, get dressed, all of that. And then 8:15 is when school starts for them. I'm free my first period. So uh, they've all are doing language arts at the same time. So even though everybody's at different levels, has different things to do from their teachers, I try to group the subject matter at the same time, so everyone's sort of working on the same thing. And then they have math, and then and math is combined with like science and social studies. In the morning, it's language arts, handwriting, and religion. And then we move into like a technology art period before lunch. We're doing a recess time during my fourth period free period. So that's hard because that's usually my lunch period. So I'm trying to eat lunch later while I'm teaching, because if I'm not face to face, I'll just grab food then. And then we try to do some sort of recess at the end of the day. After lunchtime, my middle kid, the kindergartner, has been doing the Mo Williams art days, art classes every day. My oldest just is like really smart and plows through all her work, and I have to keep finding stuff to keep her busy. And then we've been doing PBS Kids, the Word TV shows in particular in the afternoon for my 4-year-old, so that like he's getting some reading stuff. So it's been like Superwire, Word World, or Word Girl specifically, and those are the only ones he can do. We put up like behavior charts for them, and that's helped a lot. It's one I don't love in school situations. It's like the color chart where it's like sparkle, good choices, but it's really helped at home to kind of curb behavior, and they can see where they stand with us because we don't have time for a more complicated system. So everybody has their name on the board and a magnet that's kind of moves around. So if we get SAS back or somebody doesn't want to do something, like it's an easy way. And then like dessert or something and later in the day is tied to how they're doing on the behavior chart. So it's been tough. My husband will pop in for parts of the day. His schedule this week is a little bit different. So he's been home so far every day. But with his military schedule, it's been really unpredictable. So we moved him to the basement because he was having a really hard time trying to balance and multitask. And so when he's up, like he's on and can be helpful with the kids. And when he's down there, like we know he's got to focus on work. So
yeah,
it's been
are
crazy.
kids interrupting you like while you're teaching?
A little bit, not terrible. Like last week was really funny. My 8-year-old was watching me Zoom and like came up, and like they more just snuggle or want to be on my lap. Like they haven't really been crazy and disruptive, but they're like last week, she was like, well, now I know what I want to do when I grow up. I want to teach at Gonzaga and teach high school, so like something clicked with her. She actually liked it, and just thought it was really fascinating watching my sophomores do small groups and talk about literature. She thought that was really cool. The kindergartner's really quiet. Like he'll be in there doing work still in the afternoon. He's my slow kid as far as work goes. Like he's very smart, but I think like he probably has a little bit of ADHD and has a really hard time focusing if too much is going on. So he'll hang out and still be doing work in the afternoon because it'll just take him forever to do one worksheet. So, so like today he popped in while I was having class and just like sat there with, I just put my arm around him. The 4-year-old was on my lap today. So like my students all are seeing my kids. Like that's just life now.
Yeah.
But they've been good about like not interrupting the classes. And I just kind of keep my side of Zoom on mute so that they don't get distracted by any sort of unpredictable noise on my end. So
yeah, that's a really good tool. Absolutely. So can you tell me, I know there's so much that's we've been going through, but can you tell us about a particular high moment or a particular low moment while you have been at home with your children in this sort of lifestyle that we're all enduring right now?
yeah, I was looking at the questions ahead of time and I was like, man, I don't really know what to say. I think that I've got highs and lows that both are from home and from school. I think um, highs at home, like the kids have been better than I thought. And I'm really grateful that we live where we live and have the house that we have. We have a lot of things to keep them occupied. We've got land around us. We have woods where they can go play in. So they've been able to go outside and play. And so just knowing that like we have everything we sort of need, like, I know it's harder for families who are in tiny apartments or friends who live in a studio by themselves, like it's got to be a totally different thing. So I'm just really thankful for the fact that, we have a nice place to live and we've got land and all of that. I think as far as a low point goes at home, just it's exhausting. Like there isn't one thing that's been really bad or horrible. Like last night, I feel like I'm doing okay during the day, but then my subconscious must be kicking in. Like I kept dreaming about teaching people's kids, like little kids, not even high school kids. Like I had a horrible time sleeping last night. I just kept waking up and I'd go right back into these bizarre dreams. And so, I'm not resting and there's going to become a point where like there's not a break from the kids. It's not like we can go on a date night and get away from them. Like this is it, for a while. And so just kind of trying to figure out my spring break starts on Monday. Like how can I get some recharge time for me, because in the last 2 weeks I haven't. So trying to figure that out. I tried last Friday. We had really nice warm weather. And so the kids were all engaged watching Frozen on TV because we hadn't watched it yet. So I snuck outside with a book and a glass of wine on our deck thinking like I was going to get some me time. And then they all came out and were like being cute, playing train with the chairs. But like, I just wanted to be by myself. So as far as the work goes, I'm impressed with my students' ability to adapt, but then like I feel like I've sent a million parent emails in the last 2 weeks because like if somebody doesn't show up for class or they're not doing the work they're supposed to do in class online, like you have to be so on top of it. And like today I sent a kid like who's a senior and he's failing and because he's just not doing the work, and he sent me a pretty rough email back, like please stop emailing my parents was the gist of his email. And like there's more going on than I know in that family, but like you feel for them because some students are just having a really hard time adapting, and not everybody has a great family life at home. And so today was a tough teaching day and a good teaching day. I had a guest speaker come in, a journalist who spoke to my class virtually, which like I was excited to still do what I would do at school with them. But, and then I also had a student who was really upset that I'm communicating with his parents, which is part of my job, but it still hurt to get that email, so.
Yeah, of course. No, that's really tough. It's really tough. And it's so true though, because we're all existing in our homes right now. And if you have a fabulous family and you're really having, you're happen to have a fabulous marriage and your kids are fairly agreeable, it's really not so bad. But if you don't have those things, it can be really challenging on another level. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So can you tell me, you kind of mentioned already the behavior chart, maybe that's it, but could you tell me about a parenting tool that you're using right now that you find is particularly
Yeah.
helpful?
Yeah. I love Epic, the app for Get Epic books. That's been a lifesaver with the 4-year-old, like the kindergartner and the second grader, the second grader's fine. Like she can just do stuff all day long and she's great. The kindergartner needs a little more like encouragement direction, but he'll be quiet. He'll be good. The 4-year-old, that's just like, it's hard. So one of his tasks from his teacher is to read 5 books a day. And like sometimes we have time and often we're doing 5 books a day outside of this, but I need him to like be sitting down and doing something by himself. And he can read letters, but he's not a reader yet. So Epic has a read aloud function though, and I can track what books and what he's doing. So that has been like a game changer because I can give him the iPad. I can show him the books that I read aloud, let him pick, and it'll highlight each word, which is great for him as a beginning reader because he's starting to see like, oh, that word makes that sound and, all of that. So that's been really helpful. And that's probably, even for all 3 kids, that's been my favorite new tech program that we've found because we can send them books to read and they're reading them. And we can track their progress and what they're doing on it. And I have 3 readers, so that's been really helpful. But just the read aloud function has been a lifesaver.
Wow.
and giving me 30 more minutes that I need to be with a class and knowing he's covered for that time. So
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to check that out. I can't
yeah, it's
believe I don't
called
even know about it yet.
getepic.com.
Life changing. It's say it again.
Get Epic
Okay.
is
Dot com. Okay,
yeah.
very cool. I'll have to check that out. So the name of this series is called How to Be. So if you could just sum up some advice for anyone else listening, would you be able to share something with us in closing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess something I haven't mentioned is I do photography on the side, and I also am a road and fields consultant on the side. So I do get how things are really hard for people. I've lost sessions, have engagement sessions I'm having to postpone, have had weddings I've supposed to been working with that I've had to have canceled. For me, like, as much at one of the things I was already doing for Lent was stepping away from social media a little bit. And I think like what's helped me a lot is I've done a lot of texting and talking to people on my phone, but I've really tried to limit my time on social media and I've been reading news sources from the source instead of reading it through social media. And the stepping away from that for me, I think has been really peaceful during this time because
Yeah.
there's just been so much hype, and then you feed into the fear a little bit, and like you can get so overwhelmed with everything that people are posting. And so unplugging a little bit has been good, and like I don't feel isolated because I'm using Messenger still, and I'm using text messaging. Like I actually talked to people in the last week that I never talk to anymore that are back in St. Louis where I'm from. And so it's kind of, this time has kind of forced me to like reestablish some friendships that I never had time for, that are like other teaching colleagues. We've come together to talk about like what are we doing with our students. My kids have been really good. Like it's been good family time. We made up like kind of a quarantine to-do list with them before all this happened because my husband kind of had it on his radar from work. And so I feel like just getting more sleep, not having to travel and commute, like I'm really appreciative of those little things. And that's helped me to not totally lose it with everything so far. So
Makes really good sense. That's great advice. Well, I really appreciate you being here today on this. And I hope that other people watching just find comfort in how you're being, and knowing that, we're not alone in all of this, I think is kind of the aim here. So thanks so much for participating. I really
no
appreciate it.
problem. Thanks, Mary.